People always talk about the blinding light of bliss and peace they see during the last moments of their life. Like there's some indescribable force that pulls them towards their final destination. A place that they can see their loved ones again. An infinity of painless existence. That is nothing like what I had experienced during the 18 times my heart had stopped in the past year. Apparently being nearly 27 years old is not an excuse to not suffer from sudden cardiac death. At least not when I had an undiagnosed heart condition called Wolff-Parkinson-White. An extra nerve in my heart put into overdrive and I was essentially dead for about 7 minutes. Those were the best 7 goddamn minutes of my entire life. After a brief moment of chest pain and my face kissing the floor, there wasn't a hint of pain in my being anymore. To the best of my knowledge, I was still on Earth, but somehow wandering the streets in front of my childhood home. I saw my parents playing with a younger version of myself in the garden, running around on a beautiful summer's day chasing me with a water hose. My mom was holding a couple of ice cream cones for me and my dad. It was a pure moment of bliss locked safely in my fondest memories. My life didn't flash by, and I was simply trapped in a beautiful moment. And although I knew that I had died, I felt no fear. However long I spent watching myself, it was simply not meant to last. Before long, I was violently jolted back into reality as they shocked my heart into a normal rhythm. I woke up for a brief moment screaming in agony before passing out once more. Something I don't remember, but was told by the nurses after the fact. They sorted out my heart as best as they could, and cut the extra nerve and kept me in the hospital for observation. I had survived unscathed from the ordeal, and after a bit of healing, they allowed me to go home. And call it limbo, the place in between, or the frickin' afterlife. Whatever you name it, I knew that I needed to go back. Unfortunately, the internet doesn't offer much in terms of the afterlife. I guess they had bad internet reception there. So I resorted to the next best thing. Forums about people who had temporarily died but returned from the brink of their own demise. Searching for that, I found exactly what you'd expect. The bright light, the tunnel, and even some who claimed there existed nothing but darkness. Their experiences might have been just as real as my own, but ever so slightly different. Definitely not what I was looking for. I ventured deeper, checking out methods of suicide. Now, don't get me wrong, I absolutely did not wish to leave this life quite so soon, but there had to be a way to temporarily die and then get brought back without permanent damage. Of course, Googling suicide only served to get me a list of prevention hotlines, so that was a short and unsuccessful mission. Even the deep web had little more to offer. A few forums that weren't listed on any casual browser, some with different experiences. People coming back with a profound respect for life and others who wanted nothing more than just to remain dead. One clicked link led to another, and before I knew it, I had ventured far down the rabbit hole to a website no person was ever meant to enter. Without providing a link, it was simply titled, The Suicide Game. It was plainly designed like any other forum, seemingly originating from the early days of the internet. Only text, no images. The posts varied from questions on what to expect from death and what people had seen on the other side. Holy shit, what just happened? By the returned. What's the longest you've been dead for? By Deadman 20. Any advice for a first timer? I'd be afraid too. You get the gist. There is a sticky post lingering at the top of the page that caught my attention. Submitted by the sole user marked as an admin. Their name was Lazarus. How to temporarily kill yourself. Without hesitation, I clicked the link. It would either be legit or just a scam to somehow get money or provide a free virus on my computer. Either way, I would quickly discover the truth. Are you brave enough to have a peek on the other side of life? Finally get a first-hand answer about what happens once we die. Maybe you've already had a glimpse and you want more, but without the mess of actually staying dead. Then Mordinex might be just for you. I'll catch a description. I thought to myself as I scrolled a bit further down, only to be met by a much more serious message. Warning, read the following before purchasing Mordinex. Individuals who suffer from chronic heart, liver, or kidney disease, as well as psychological disorders should refrain from using Mordinex in any capacity. The drug will temporarily stop your heart from 1 to 3 minutes by altering nerve conductivity between your atrioventricular node and your Purkinje system. The electrical activity is quickly restored as the drug dissolves and you'll be back to normal. Instructions on dosage will follow your order. Do not, under any circumstances, exceed recommended dosage or frequency of administration. Package content: 24 sublingual tablets. Delivery time 5 to 7 days. Don't believe us? Try a sample of 3 tablets free of charge. I clicked on the last link for the free sample. I mean, yeah, taking drugs from a stranger is objectively a bad idea. But honestly, who would voluntarily part with expensive drugs just to mess with someone? Even though I had suffered a heart attack, the doctors had assured me that it would not occur again after having undergone treatment. After all, I was still a young man with a rare but treatable heart condition. I waited 5 days and the sample arrived in my mail, conveniently disguised as a regular vitamin C tablet. I locked myself in and I read the instructions. It was pretty much the same as advertised on the website, with some advice on where to take the pills, and have some water and fruit prepared for recovery. After a little consideration, I thoughtlessly put one of the pills under my tongue. It burned slightly as it dissolved into my mouth. I counted my breaths nervously, holding one hand on my chest to see if it was working. Darkness. I don't even remember going out. Stripped from my body, I found myself walking inside an unfamiliar house. A family sat in a small living room, warmly lit by a burning fireplace. Their windows were covered by a thin layer of snow, and a beautifully decorated Christmas tree stood idly in the corner, protecting a pile of colorful presents. A young couple sat snuggled up on a sofa, watching as their little son ran around with an excited smile on his face. It must have been quite early in the morning because it was so dark outside. The kid grabbed one of the presents and tore off the wrapping paper. Their shared bliss froze me in place. I could feel their warmth as I watched them just living their best life, not a care in the world as long as they had each other. And the son shrieked in excitement as he discovered a set of tiny model cars hidden within his present. He instantly started playing around, making pretend races with his new toys. It was the purest moment that I'd ever seen. Their happiness radiated towards me, filling me with unspeakable joy. The crackling fireplace emitted an angelic sound, getting louder by each passing second. It was too loud. A log had somehow fallen out and a spark had set fire to the curtains. I yelled out for the family, but I was nothing more than an invisible observer in their world. Within a minute, the room became engulfed in flames, and the distracted family had not noticed it in time to get out. The door was blocked by flames, and I could do nothing more but helplessly watch while they burned to death in their own home. I violently gasped for air as I was brought back into the real world. I still heard the helpless screams of the family echoing in my ears. In real life, only a couple of minutes had passed, but it felt much longer in purgatory. I'm not ashamed to admit that I wept. Throughout my life, I had lost my parents dying at a young age from terrible diseases. I have gone broke due to student debt, and I had some trouble finding a place in life. But nothing compared to watching that family hopelessly being trapped with no chance of escape. 2 pills remained from the free sample that I had received, and I threw them both away without a second thought. I wouldn't voluntarily go through that again. A couple of weeks passed as I attempted to push the memory of the ordeal to the deepest pit of my mind, pretending that it had been no more than a horrible nightmare. But life's a bitch and then you die. Quite literally in my case. By some stroke of luck, I had landed an interview, but on my way to said meeting, I suffered another massive heart attack. My chest was pounding, pain stretching down and down my arm into my back. I couldn't breathe nor call for help. I simply fell to the ground clutching my chest, once again enveloped in blinding, everlasting darkness. There were no illusions of pleasantries awaiting me on the other side at that time. I was plunged straight into a nightmare of sorrow. I stood on a quiet road in the middle of God knows where, surrounded by tall trees protecting the place from sight. I had nowhere to go. A car light smashed to bits on the side of the road. A woman clearly broken by the impact was hanging halfway out of the door, while a man desperately yelled for help. His phone had died on impact and he had no means to call anyone. No way to save his dying wife. Again, I was watching the worst moment of someone's life. A man who sobbed while he told the woman he loved as she slipped away into the afterlife. Despite the pain that I had shared with him in that moment, I almost felt the presence of something even darker looming over me. I looked around to get a glimpse of a silhouette in the distance, disappearing as fast as I was able to fixate my eyes on it. It appeared humanoid, but much taller in stature. Before I could do anything else, I was dragged back to life. Let me tell you, the pain from the cracked ribs after having an inexperienced person performing chest compressions on you is not something you want to feel after waking up from death for the third time. But somehow I had returned to the land of the living once more. According to the doctors, my heart was permanently damaged, not from my initial disease, but because of trauma. They told me the first heart attack was the cause, a lack of oxygen for 7 minutes and all that. But I knew better. The damn pill was the culprit. After frantically searching for the website, doing my best to retrace the steps I had taken last time, I finally stumbled upon the suicide game once more. Welcome back. A pop-up message displayed, remembering that I had previously received an order of pills. There hadn't been a new post since my last visit. I jotted it down as being an obscure website no sane person would visit. But as I scrolled down, I noticed that the forum had been quite the active place until just a month ago. Most of the posts were about expectations and experiences, and no sign of complaint. But I kept browsing, clicking further back in the forum until I finally found something that matched my predicament. The post simply said, "I think I brought something back with me from the other side." I clicked on the link with a trembling finger, both hopeful and afraid to learn the answer. So, I've been using the pill for about a month now, and honestly, it was the most amazing month of my life. I've seen things that I could never dream of, and most of my lifelong questions have been answered in one way or another. But it's not the same anymore. It used to be so pleasant, so nice, but now I just keep seeing people dying around me. There's something else with me when I go there, just like these shadows that follow me around. At first I thought that I had taken too many pills or something, but now I keep seeing them in real life. I don't know what to do. Is this a side effect of the drug? I'm sorry if this isn't too coherent, but I'm freaking the fuck out. That was his last entry. A few people commented similar experiences, giving the silhouetted figure a name: the Shadow People. Some of the users suggested to stop taking the pills, while others said to just ignore the shadows as they weren't interfering. Nothing there could help somebody like myself though, who regularly suffered from inexplainable heart attacks even when not using the drug. Had I not thrown away the remaining pills, maybe the doctors could have helped me, but I was doomed by my own hand. While trying to order new pills, the website simply returned an error message. I needed some kind of proof that the website was more than just a scam. While trying to play with death, I had invited it into my own life. They did what they could, giving me some anti-arrhythmic medication and an implantable defibrillator. It could buy me some more time, but the doctors were not hopeful with my prognosis, saying I could last a few years if I turned out to be very lucky. It wouldn't even be a month until I suffered another heart attack. The defibrillator tried its best to put my heart back into sinus rhythm, but during that time, I once again faced another horrific sight. And despite being unconscious for less than a minute, it appeared the time passed differently while in limbo. What met me on the other side was nothing less than a massive natural disaster. An earthquake in a country I couldn't recognize. Structures had fallen around me, and all that echoed through the air were the cries of despair. I couldn't understand the language, but the pain needed no translation. I watched around to see people crushed by falling concrete. Some were trapped while others were moments before death. My eyes met those of a man gasping his last breath, but when his lights went out for the last time, I could have sworn that he stared back at me. He understood what was about to happen, a sense of peace falling over him as he knew he was no longer alone. He had passed on to whatever realms exist after death, but for a brief moment, we had been together in purgatory. I remain in solitude. I watch around the ruins of what used to be the homes of thousands of people, witnessing destruction far beyond anything they could cope with. The shadow people lurked in my peripheral vision. They were just like the silhouette I had seen before, but clearer this time. Undoubtedly humanoids. They simply stared at me as I wandered around, pitying the traumatized citizens. I was repeatedly brought back from purgatory, and never being allowed to simply remain dead and finally move on. Each time I'd be greeted by more horrific sights, intertwined with the shadows studying my every move in their domain. In a couple months, I would die 14 more times, and never permanently naturally, but enough to realize I had meddled with something I was never supposed to. I knew it, and the shadow people knew it. Little by little, they started following me back from limbo. They were everywhere, never interfering, never approaching, simply observing me as if I was some sort of pathetic lab rat. There's a fine line between life and death, a brief moment where people exist in purgatory. For most, this is nothing more than a short journey on the road to a better place, but for some who are stuck, this can be an everlasting nightmare. At the moment of death, I know that they can see me, and I do my best to assure them. Whether I'm being kept alive by the efforts of the doctors, or by the mysterious pill I consumed so long ago, I'm patiently awaiting the day I can finally rest. My only comfort while I wait is to provide the passing people with a brief moment of peace as they accept their fate.